Good afternoon, I'm Joshua Colclasure, and I want to take the time to present some information about the Lifecycle Management Center Operations Division and why the organization is in desperate need for IT governance and changes within the IT department to move the organization to a better place in terms of technology, process management, and overall growth within the industry. First of all, um, some things that can be addressed with IT governance is upgrading into antiquated work order tracking and saving time for the technicians that are doing the work. Within the Lifecycle Management Center Operations Division, there's a common focal point that spends the majority of their day taking phone calls and opening tickets for users in the field that are having any number of IT issues. Well, having the IT governance in place to actually allow the technicians to use newer technologies to uh, allow the users to put in the information for the trouble ticket themselves rather than contacting a third party or a middleman, so to say, to take care of the issue would save time. Unfortunately, with the current setup, that's not the case because the user base is so stuck in their way of doing things the old way and having that voice on the other end of the line to contact that it's hard for them to accept the change of moving to this newer technology. Something else that IT governance could help is to actually incorporate the use of multiple vendors with all the different aspects of the organization that involve technology. For the longest time, the organization has been using, in terms of infrastructure equipment, strictly Cisco-based hardware. Uh, Although Cisco has been a great company, there's many other companies out there that also have solid products as well. So why not incorporate the use of some of those things and, for one, see if potentially those solutions are even better than the current solution, but also to not put all of your technology into one basket, so to say, to spread the wealth and learn that there may be other solutions out there that could be cheaper, better, and even more user friendly or administrator friendly. Another thing IT governance could help within this organization is to actually restructure the organization and marry it more to the ITIL structure that you see in commercial industries. Within this organization, there are some similarities to the ITIL structure, but I do believe it could benefit even more by taking the approach of if there was to be an organization, say a contractor, come in and just do everything the way that a normal commercial organization would have things set up, it could alleviate some issues with time constraints and uh, lack of proper procedures and technology within the organization as well. Um, I think in general, IT governance is something uh, that should help to standardize security policy. Um, and within this organization, there's definitely a need for standardizing security policy because right now there's so much information that is not included in current security policy because the current security policy is several years out of date. So it doesn't really include any newer technologies in the policy, uh, especially with the shift to a large number of mobile and handheld devices. There's no mention of how to handle those devices within the current security policy of this organization. Another big thing there is getting the senior leaders of this organization to learn to be accepting of risk in certain situations versus just trying to avoid all risk altogether. Because there's always going to be risk, and if an organization continues to avoid risk altogether, then they're never really going to be uh, successful in their mission and moving forward with their information technology. So you have to understand that there's certain risks that have to be accepted, and those are all on a case-by-case basis. But having IT governance in place to help the decision makers work their way through that process would certainly help. Another area that can be improved is reducing the time frame for procuring IT, because right now there's so many layers that the organization has to go through in order to approve any number of new IT assets, and this can go anywhere from a few monitors or laptops, desktops, whether it's new altogether or just replacing old existing equipment. Either way, there's still several steps that it has to go through, and several approvers that it has to go through. It could be a process that's several weeks, if not months, to get IT procured, and by the time it's procured, the need may have changed, and there's possibly a need for even more or a different technology altogether. So reducing that time frame and having that IT governance to really guide that and help that decision maker to remove some of those layers of red tape, so to say, would certainly help as well. Improving continuity is always going to be something that an organization should strive to do. But in military organizations, it's very critical because the nature of the military members, in most cases, will be tasked with going on deployments or temporary duty assignments to where they may still be assigned to that organization, but they're off working somewhere else doing a different job for whether it's a few weeks or even 6 to 8 months. And this causes a strain within the organization to continue their mission, because the mission doesn't stop at this organization just because there's people that normally work there that are off working somewhere else. The Lifecycle Management Center Operations Division still has its job to do as well. So in this case, having more civil servants and IT contractors on hand to actually assist with those tasks that aren't being done by the military members while they're away, having more permanent party individuals working within the organization will help to increase that continuity, especially having those civil servants in key positions that really require continuity and corporate knowledge, so to say. The administrators that work within the organization, they've dealt with some significant issues in terms of what they can and cannot do. Over time, this has changed. The military in general has gone towards a more centrally managed IT structure. And so now, instead of allowing system administrators and network administrators within this organization to handle the entire network and everything that goes along with it, their hands are tied, so to say. They can only do certain tasks, and they're required to submit trouble tickets to a higher organization that just so happens to have more access into that network. And unfortunately, this causes a significant delay in getting projects completed. So having IT governance to establish that culture of we need something done, let's get it done as soon as possible. So in this case, whenever there's a project and something is identified that cannot be done locally, as soon as it is identified, route that up in a trouble ticket or whatever the medium is to that next level that can take the action, because the sooner it gets in there, the sooner it's going to be completed. So in this case, IT governance could help with really building that culture of getting it out as soon as the requirement is known. And lastly, something that IT governance can resolve is increasing productivity by introducing more mobile technologies. Although this isn't necessarily a brand new thing, it is fairly new to the IT industry. We've had laptops for quite some time, but over the past several years, smartphones have become a much bigger part of society as a whole, and there's known value to what these devices can bring to an organization. Most people already use smartphones or some type of handheld device on a daily basis, so it's something that they're comfortable with. So really, this organization could benefit by leveraging what people already know about these devices and allowing them to use those devices to be more productive with work, and allowing them to access their work network, their information via these devices, these smartphones and tablets. So this is an area that could really help out the organization. And there's actually some steps that this organization can take to have a successful implementation of mobile handheld devices like smartphones and tablets. And I've actually got some information here, some steps that I think the organization, if they were to follow these steps, and you'll notice a trend throughout these steps, feedback is a big part of all of these steps, and a big part of just a change and implementation of bringing in a newer technology into this organization. So I'll just start with some of the things that this organization can do to bring the organization into really the present of where we are in IT, but also into the future, and open up the organization into really a new way of handling business. The first thing to do is get feedback from all levels to determine how these mobile devices can be used within the organization, starting with just an idea of this is how we can use it. Those ideas can expand along the way, but at least having a baseline, this is what we want the organization to do with these devices. Having that down, it can lead straight into the next step, which is to actually research the technologies that are available. And here there's a big key, a fork in the road, so to say. So do you go with devices that this company provides or this organization provides to the users? So they're purchased by this organization and essentially issued to users on a case-by-case basis? Or do you allow the users to actually use their own smartphone devices, their own mobile devices, to access company information? In the case of this organization, I think it's beneficial to use a more of a organization procured solution to allow more control there. Yes, there's going to be more upfront costs for that, but in the end, I think it's a logical step to go from very little mobile technology within the organization. Uh, so a gradual step to get into uh, the the business of using mobile technology within the organization. Maybe future plans a little bit down the road, if this process is implemented correctly and it's successful, then the organization can start to look into the idea of bring your own device type of solution, which would allow those users to bring in their own devices and use those to access network resources. After identifying the technologies that are out there um, and deciding on the organization purchasing the devices themselves and issuing to users, um, the organization has to look at the different ways that the users can access the network. And there's actually an existing public key infrastructure structure that's in place already, and there are solutions available, especially over the last couple of years. Even more have become available to allow organizations to use their existing public key infrastructure to allow those users to access the network while also maintaining that security as if the user was sitting in front of their workstation at their desk. And in this case, the organization uses smart cards to log on, and they also have a PIN associated with that. In this case, using a solution that would allow the user to, of course, they're still going to have a smart card, but with these phones, there wouldn't be a need to actually put that smart card into the phone anywhere, into a device that's connected to the phone. It would actually be just mobile digital certificates, encryption certificates that will work within that public key infrastructure of the organization. And it would reduce the need for actually having other devices connected to the one device to even allow access to the network. Once a solution is determined, this should go out to a very small test group of about 10 users. And really this is just to determine, does the solution meet the intent of what we're trying to get here? And this is going to be the first of many steps or many layers of testing, but it's a very important step because, for one, it will help determine what functionality is there, how usable it is for the user, and if the technologies actually work how they are intended to work. And if not, then we should look at other solutions for how to actually make this work. Once that's done and everything is successful, certainly after any feedback from the testers, the developers, everyone involved, there should be feedback at every level. Testing can resume on about 5% of the users within the organization. Again, you don't want to get all the users out there at one time and put them onto this new technology with no guarantee that it's going to work. Even if you had your first 10 users were successful after some tweaking, you still need to work slowly towards getting the rest of the user base on there. So starting with another 5% of the user base, getting their feedback, understanding their issues, resolving any problems that come from them using these devices. And once that is done, there should be a good idea of that functionality that's available, how the users are going to use the devices, and really the IT governance, the documentation, the policy involved in all of this really has to be established before going any further. Granted, the policy and the IT governance as a whole should be part of the continuous improvement process. So it should always be checked on and updated as there's changes, or as there's newer technologies coming on board or newer processes, those policies should always be referenced and reviewed, updated as necessary. But at this point, it would be establishing that policy and also establishing proper user training for how these users are going to use the phones, because there's going to be a lot of questions, and having a standardized training established for these users before they even start using devices, and also something that they can reference as they're using the devices and learning the devices. This will just help the process immensely. Once all this is done, the organization should deploy the solution that they have on hand to about 20% of the user base now, getting into a much bigger pool of users, but still not going for the entire user base. And here, the feedback is just as important as it was in the beginning, and the next steps. It's very critical here because you have a lot more users using that solution now, so there should be even more feedback. But hopefully at this point, a majority of the bugs have been worked out, and that the process is getting straightened out a little bit better. But there's always room for improvement, and there's going to be things that were missed by the previous testers that can be found in this. So that feedback is absolutely critical. And once this feedback is received, really just continuing that process to get these devices to all users within the organization. And this definitely shouldn't be a week-long process. This should, to be successful, it should take probably a couple months to 3 months to just really make sure that the solution is valid, it's working. But again, once you get it to all the user base, there's still a need for that feedback and going back to see how the process can be improved even more, or the solution can be improved. And it's also looking at things in terms of when is the operating system for the device going to be upgraded, or when is the hardware going to need to be upgraded. Those are things to be considering at this stage as well. But at this point, it really is getting that product out to the users, getting that feedback to see how well they are able to use the device within the organization to still be productive and effective, not only while at work, but also traveling for work. And then wrapping it all up with that continuous process improvement and keeping those policies updated. That's the one constant here is the feedback and continuing to make the solution better, and learning from all the steps prior to this, and taking into consideration all of that feedback. Really, this is just going to take the organization to a much better place. And as I mentioned before, following all of these steps, I truly believe that the organization can have a successful implementation of a solution that it desperately needs in smartphones and mobile technologies. And it should absolutely allow the user base to be more effective and also feel as though they have buy-in to the technologies that the organization is bringing in, because they certainly do with the feedback that they provide. So this concludes my presentation for this organization and how to properly implement a newer technology with the mobile devices. I certainly believe that IT governance is a must, and one of those things that just needs to have constant focus. It's not just about documentation and standards, processes, procedures. It really is about a culture, and that culture should be constantly changing for the better, keeping security in mind, but also bringing in newer technologies to keep this industry moving forward and allowing users to get their missions done more effectively. That is the ultimate goal. Thank you for your time and attention for this presentation, and I hope I've provided some great information for how to be successful within this organizations and implementing a new IT solution. Thank you.